Well, hello. Welcome to Social Glue powered by Restream. That is what you're watching right now in your feed. I am your host, Rachel Moore, here with you every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And you should be watching us in one of any four places right now. So going live on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube all at the same time. Rachel, how in the world are you doing that, you may ask? It's a great question, and I have the answer. I am actually using a tool called Restream, which lets me broadcast to all four of those spots at the same time. Lets me do this really cool caption along the bottom too, and the little overlays and the graphics. And in a little bit, I get to bring on a guest. I get to show you my screen. I get to do all these things. So it's pretty cool. And if you all comment and I like your comment, I can show it on the screen too. So let me give you an opportunity to do that right now. I would love to know where you're watching this show from. Tell me which social app you're watching this from. Tell me where in the globe you're watching this from. I am joining you from Denver, Colorado. I'm actually a little south of Denver, but I am in my corner studio, which is basically a corner in my house. We can all relate, right? We're all trying to find those good backdrops for where we're going to do video conferencing or video anything. So I can relate. And I've got some nice shelving going on. You know, I just wanted to create my ambiance, but that's where I'm coming from. So I'd love to hear from you, whoever's watching, if you're watching live or the replay. Talk to me about where you're joining us from, and I can show your captions if you're live and your comments on the screen. And that's one way to interact with the show. So you are watching Social Glue powered by Restream. So here's what the show is all about. Connecting. Right? Working in social media, it is an obvious connector across geographies, across personalities, across brands and people. That's kind of the crux of this whole show. So what we're going to talk about is latest news items in social media. So we'll cover a few things next. After that, we're going to bring on a Social Glue shout out guest, social media pro who works out there. Often these are people I've never met before, connected with before, which is also why I like this show. But we connect and we're going to bring them on and they share some amazing insights of what they know working neck deep in social media every day. Sometimes it's a little above the neck. Sometimes it's below. Social media is rather busy. So I was just telling my guest off air that I tend to fall into a British accent trying to do that. As you guys know me, you know that I do that. You're welcome to do that too. If you are wanting to speak accents and things like that or give them a try, I love them. I don't do them well. But when you come from a community theater background like myself, you kind of just fall into it. I promise I won't do it anymore in this show. So you guys don't have to point at laugh at me for that point. But in any case, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because now we're going to dive into our Social Glue news for the week. So first up, we're going to talk about Instagram for 0 to tweens. Now that is it's supposed to be a 0. I just want to point that out. It's supposed to be a 0 on there and not actually an O, tweens. But Instagram is basically rolling out or announcing that they're going to roll out. It's an app, a separate app for Instagram for kids. I'm just going to allow you all to have little sirens and red flags and alarms go off in your head right now. Let's get that out of the way. I find this to be an interesting approach. They're saying that this is an answer or response to the fact that a lot of cyberbullying happens, especially to minors on Instagram. It does happen across all social apps. So can we just say right now, everyone stop doing that? Okay. And if you see it, say something, report it, block the person, whatever. If you're a parent or a guardian of a minor who's on social, please be checking their stuff, helping them navigate that. It's disgusting and awful. So let's just get that out of the way. But Instagram is saying that in their response to providing, trying to thwart bullying on their app, on the normal Instagram app we all know and use and often love, they're going to create one that's specific for 13 and under. Because as of right now, if you're under 13, you're not supposed to be legally on Instagram. You can get reported if people discover you are underage and then get your account removed. My big kind of concern with this is obvious. It's and I'm going to be terrible and liken this to smoking. Okay. It's like when they did the little candy cigarettes back in the day. And sometimes I guess they're still out there too, but it was about how cigarette companies wanted to normalize smoking for kids who couldn't afford or weren't old enough to buy cigarettes. And I kind of feel like this is going that way. Because let's be clear. they can create an app that's safe for minors. You can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be some advertising on it, even if it is geared just to minors and it's safe for minors. But it's also going to make them very used to being on a social media app that will carry them forward into the future. So, sure, I think it's a great idea to try to create a safe space on a social media app for minors, but there's always a trade-off, right? These companies are absolutely doing this based on a bottom line, and they are seeing future consumers. And so that's where they're also trying to tap into that. So interesting news as we're seeing that develop with our social media apps that we are familiar with. Next up, and I want to take it down a little bit for this next story. First of all, thoughts, prayers, just safety and love going out to people in Boulder, Colorado. As you all may be aware, probably are aware, there was a shooting at a King Soopers grocery store there earlier this week, and left 20 people dead as a result, including one police officer. So suspect is in custody and all that. So this unfolded over about 3 to 4 hours. So again, we're really thinking of Boulder today and all week and going forward, and hoping for healing for that community and for all of us, who are, living in that realm where this happens. So as we're looking at that, one thing that came up related to this particular instance is that there was a bystander who was on the ground right in the vicinity. And I believe they were either right outside the grocery store, had been in and gotten out, but he live streamed 3 to 4 hours of what was going on. And even to the point where the cops were actually asking him to leave and he would not. And so what is causing the problem here is because the 3 to 4 hour long live stream is still up on YouTube, and YouTube has not taken it down as of the time of this broadcast. And they're saying it's because it's newsworthy. And we've heard this before, right? Where people may put stuff out there that is trigger warning, triggers people, or is violent, depicting violence or harm of people. And in this case, they're saying, well, this is justified because it is carrying news. Now, the problem is, I guess the live streamer in question added his own commentary throughout, and even was using his device to capture video live of bodies. So I'm not going to provide the link to the YouTube. You are welcome to go look at it if you want and decide for yourself. But this does bring in, and we just talked about it with the last news item, when are social media apps going too far or not going far enough? Should they take it down? Should they at least censor some parts of it, or blur it, or give the viewer the opportunity to say, hey, you may not want to see these next images, decide. So just keep that in mind. And for all of us who have devices, we become those journalists on the ground, whether we, foresee that we're going to be or not. What do you show? What do you document? What do you put out there so that people can know what's going on? And why are you doing it? I think is the big thing for there. So again, just an instance where news and social met, and we're not really sure if it's a good thing. Right. So things to keep in mind as we continue on philosophizing about social media and how great it is, and so on. Which brings us to the final social glue news item of the day, which is Facebook. So I am half excited about this, half leery of this, which I feel both that way about all of our news items today. Facebook announced that they're developing wearable, and it should be AR, so apologies, but it's correct in my caption, Facebook AR wearables. So I immediately thought of Tony Stark. So basically it's where if you have some goggles and there's a wristwatch, and essentially as you interact with the world around you, just think of Tony Stark kind of moving things around in front of what he's seeing with his hand, even though it's invisible to everybody else, but he can see it. That's kind of where they're going, right? To where you can interact with your surroundings. Decide if you want to see details about things around you. I instantly thought about, well, can it tag people with like their name? And so if I forget someone's name, I can see, like my guest today is Arielle. I can see her her name's Arielle. I know her name now, and maybe some more stuff about her. So, yes, kind of breaching into the whole data and privacy thing, but also, ooh, cool. That would be kind of cool to be able to feel like you're Tony Stark. know I'm geeking out about it right now. Were I given this, I probably would totally try it out. But it does carry a whole heck of a lot of baggage around data and privacy with it. So just keep that in mind. These are all these instances where we're not really sure if things are going in the right direction with these social apps and the things that they're giving us and the tools and the features and things like that. So giving you a lot to think about today. Honestly, take a deep dive there and think about what do you think about all these things. I would love to hear in the comments if you think these things are weird or they're cool or you agree or you disagree or your own forecast for what these are harbingers of for our society. Because social media tends to drive a lot of that. Speaking of social media driving a lot of things, we're now going to segue into our next segment for the day, which is our social media, our social glue shout out for the week. And I'm really excited to bring on our next guest. And we're going to talk about, I've got some experience too with like doing social media for regulated industries. And our guest is very well versed in all of that. So I'm happy to welcome Arielle Kimbarovsky. She's the content management strategist. Did I say that right?
Content strategy manager. You were really, really close.
You're managing the strategy of content for M1 Finance. Arielle, welcome to Social Glue powered by Restream.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's awesome to have you on. And we were talking offline too, just talking about all the different ways and things and interesting ways you can do social media differently based on the industries you're in and things like that. And I also love, as our audience is going to learn, you're working for a brand that is in growing by leaps and bounds, shall we say.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, though, I'd love to ask you, as we do ask every one of our shout out guests, could you share with us your origin story? How did you get started in social media marketing?
Yeah, so probably by total and complete.
Sorry about that. That was me. Go ahead.
By total and complete accident is how I got started. My dad had opened his own company. It was a tech company in Chicago. I was in high school and he needed some marketing help, and I started helping on the content side of things. And then I was the default young person, default marketer, started getting into social a little bit, and one thing led to another, and suddenly I was running a freelance business and I was working for brands, and I was becoming the quote unquote expert when I was doing social. And I realized, oh, this is a thing people do. This is not just like a, hey, let me have the intern tweet this kind of thing. So I stumbled into it, but I was always curious and I was always reading online. I just didn't realize that it was a path. And then it became one, and then I built one out of it.
I love that you brought up that, the whole age thing where it is just like, oh, have an intern or someone do it. And I do feel like a lot of us maybe got started that way, or like it became a bullet point, right? On like, hey, doing all this other stuff, and now we're going to have you do this too. It's just a small little thing, which winds up getting into a huge area. Can you talk to us a little bit about that too? I mean, you're working in a hyper-growth fintech company, M1 Finance. How are you doing with growing? Like from when you started to where you are today, how has social been expanding for your particular brand?
Oh man, it's expanded so much. So I started in May of 2020. So we're all in quarantine, we're in a pandemic, and the M1 marketing team is 4 people, and we're a Series A company.
Wow.
And I think it was like a week, 2 weeks, and then the company announces, hey, we raised a Series B. And suddenly we're a marketing team of 7 people. And then we continue growing. And suddenly our channels aren't just, we have 1,000 followers here, 2,000 here. We post maybe the same thing we send in an email. We didn't really have time. We were just kind of doing support. It was really informal. Sometimes we forgot to sign a name on a DM. It was really just, the team was small and scrappy. And so I was brought in as a marketing and social media strategist. I was a hybrid creative and a strategist on our creative team at the time. And then we just started growing like crazy. And people started engaging with us and loving us on social. And they started talking about us more. And then everyone went, oh, this is a thing. Also, people are noticing. This is a great way to get our audience engaged. This is a great way to learn more about these folks, insert ourselves into conversations. It's hard when you're competing against a big space and also incumbents that have been here for, hundreds of
Mhm.
years in the cases of some of the big competitors and financial institutions. Fast forward to today, and content as a whole is a priority at M1, and we're a Series D company, and the marketing
Mhm.
team's over 20 people, and we're continuing to grow.
Wow, wow. You went from 4 to 20 in less than a year?
Oh, we're definitely more than 20. We're probably at like 25 or something now. But yeah, and
Wow.
we'll have more too. I mean, this was multiple funding rounds in months. It's new people, definitely monthly, if not weekly sometimes.
Wow.
So it's been hugely exciting. And for most of this, I was a team of one for
Mhm.
social and then for content, and we had some freelance help, and now we're starting to build the team now that
Wow.
we've proved, hey, this works. This is a thing that helps our business.
Wow, that's amazing. And for anyone watching, if you happen to be looking for social media roles or marketing roles, I know that Arielle is there. You guys are hiring, you're growing, so
We are.
we've got your you've got your social handle there below, so people can find you either on LinkedIn or on Twitter. But I want to ask you too. So first of all, the growth you're talking about, and not just from your team, but also the social media engagement, sounds like a dream, right? Everybody's like,
Yeah.
I want that engagement for the brand I'm doing. But obviously, it takes a lot of resources to be able to handle that growth. And I know you just touched on that. But also, you're talking about a regulated industry. And this kind of brings up our question for the week. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that on the screen so we can address that. So I'd like to ask you again. You're working in finance, which has a lot of regulation around it. How is managing social for a regulated industry different, or challenging, or even better than any other industry or any other that's not so regulated?
This is a great question. So I wouldn't say it's better or worse. I truly believe that every industry has its own unique pluses and its own unique minuses. And for every individual, for every social professional, those are going to feel slightly different. So,
Mm-hmm.
what's better for me it might not be what you even want to do with your career and with your life, and that's totally fine. The way that working in a regulated industry, specifically in finance, is different is that we have a number of regulators that put us under a microscope.
Mm.
And we have clients and an audience that puts us under a microscope because we handle sensitive things like money. And so we have rules that we need to follow, and we have a process. So anything that goes out to more than, I think it's 25 people, needs
Mm-hmm.
to go through our
Mm.
compliance team. And so this brings in this question of, okay, how do you handle engagement? How do you handle posts? How do you handle in the moment things? And there are some loopholes in the rules, and there are some openings where the regulators, want to give you space. They want you to be able to market. But that's meant that I need to be really well versed in
Mm-hmm.
FINRA rules, for example. I don't have to be a compliance manager. I don't have to have a series license. I don't have to do all the exams. We have people that are experts in that. They're going to catch my mistakes. But it is my responsibility to make sure that no one's correcting me on the same thing more than once, that I'm catching the easy stuff, that I keep in mind when a regulator says, hey, you need fair and balanced information. I know what that means and how it translates. And
Mm-hmm.
as I build a team, that I teach my team and catch these things so that we make everyone's lives easier, and we're a better partner to our compliance team. We're a better partner to regulators. And at the end of the day, we're always acting in the best interest of our clients, which ideally every company would do this. We
You'd hope.
just we just have a really, really high standard for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's challenging. And so that sometimes means that maybe your creative idea needs a different angle, or setting
Sure.
up a new channel is going to take a little bit longer, or hey, you really have to think through processes of in the moment things, because a mistake can, be a lawsuit, unfortunately, which not that that
Right.
happens, but it's more of a possibility than if I was working for, a chip brand or something.
You brought up some great points there. I want to bring up a question someone asked in the chat. What metrics are you measuring against to show impact to the business to company leadership? Now, this is a little bit of a left field question, but
It's
are
awesome.
you game to answer?
Absolutely. And I'm going to preface this by saying I don't think anyone's cracked the code on presenting social metrics to leadership. Otherwise, we would all stop asking each other this question.
That's right. We'd be in leadership.
If anyone out there is thinking, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on," it's okay. It's constant. We're constantly working through that. Right now, what we're really focused on are two metrics: impressions and engagements. And I know impressions have their own reputation, especially among social professionals. Here's how I think about it. So when I think about our goals on social as a hypergrowth company, we want people to be aware of M1. People need to be aware of M1 before they do anything else. Because we're a financial institution, I don't think you're going to see a couple tweets and go, yeah, I'm going to put my money on your platform. I'm going to invest all my money on this platform. I don't think that's going to happen. If that happens, then that means we've unlocked, the ultimate code of social, and right. I'm taking over the world. But that's not going to happen. So impressions are really important in terms of this content needs to get seen. It's got to get seen. But on the other hand, we also measure engagements. And so certain types of posts have a different preference of when we want impressions or when we want engagement. And engagement is really important because I don't care if we have 100,000 followers and we have 5 comments or 5 likes on a tweet. That's a low ratio, and it means we're not as relevant to the audience. I would rather have a smaller number and have people wanting to engage with our content, because on the business side, we've noticed that if people are engaged, they're going to put money on the platform. So I try to take what's going on in the business and I'm like, all right, how do we parallel this to what's happening on social, knowing we don't have a multi-touch attribution model. It's really hard to stand stuff like that up. Leadership doesn't always know the ins and outs of social, right? And that's okay. That's not their job. My job is to give them that information in a way that makes sense to them.
That's a really great answer. Thank you for that. And thank you, I believe that was Jessica, for putting that forward. And like I said, we had you in the chair and you were, I know you're probably doing this all the time because as you mentioned, you went from just yourself to now growing your team, and you've got to be able to demonstrate to leadership that that's justified. And here are the metrics you're showcasing to do that. And I love that you brought up too, getting back to regulated industries. It might seem, anyone out there, if you're a business leader watching this and you're not well versed in social, that's perfectly fine. Just as Arielle said, but you might think, well, it's just easy. Just put this up. Just put this out there and post it. And particularly in a regulated industry, you can't. You have to go through that red tape and make sure, well, I'd love to, and I will. We'll figure out a way to do it, but we have to make sure we're doing it right. And you have to make sure you're in compliance, as you said. Because, you're talking about lawsuits, hefty fines, sometimes not being able to do business anymore, so it's a big deal particularly for regulated industries. And I want to point out too, I know we've got your handle as well as the handle for M1 Finance, that you guys are on TikTok, which is amazing. I love that you've got a fintech company who's going forth in that, which is great, because why not try and see what's out there? And as you said, if you're trying to grow that brand, and trying out different channels, that's important to do. And so I'm kind of in awe of you that you're able to push that out in spite of all the regulation and compliance. But
our compliance team was on our side.
Really? Talk about that.
So our CMO wasn't really sold on TikTok because it is a younger audience and our ideal target is not necessarily that audience. We capture a lot of young folks, but there's a balance when you think about audience segmentation, and I'm very lucky to have that information from our analytics team who's done a bunch of work with that and all sorts of things. But I was talking about the idea with our compliance team, and they helped advocate for it. They were all for it, even when it created more work on their end, because at the end of the day, I did the work up front to make their job easier when it came to working with me.
Nice.
And I did the work up front to build that relationship. And it was hard. I'd never worked in a regulated industry before. I honestly didn't even know what I was walking into when it came to this stuff. But it paid off. And someone mentioned this in one of our team meetings this morning. People will do more for you when they like you. And so it's not about I don't know, completely pandering to what someone else wants.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being a genuine human being and also understanding, well, how can I make someone else's life easier right now? Because I'm going to need something from them. I don't know what
Yeah,
that is. I'm going to need something, and I'm going to want them to be on my side
that's right.
way ahead of time. I don't even want someone to second guess, oh, the
Mm-hmm.
content team has this weird, crazy idea that's going to take up this time. I want someone to be like, yeah, no, they helped me with this thing. Let's
Yes.
do it.
Well, you're talking about a philosophy that is that's why marketing and communications works. You want something from the person that's reading that, and so you have to tap into saying, well, what can I give you then that will make you do what I need you to do? But yeah, collaboration for sure, and I totally agree. I mean, I know whenever I started a new company, I try to make best friends as soon as I can with the IT team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they aren't on my side, I will have nothing that works.
And these people are all genuinely nice. And
Oh
you
yeah.
can learn so much about how other people think and approach things. And you never know how it'll be relevant to your area too. And
Hmm.
that's the other thing that no one talks about.
Yeah, exactly.
Philosophies, management, communication, you can learn that from anybody. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
better to learn that from someone who's not a marketer.
That is completely true. I love what you said there too. And Jessica agrees. She says, make friends with legal and compliance day one must. Do you have time for one more question from
I
our
do.
viewers?
I do.
This relates again back to the metrics. So Dakota got on and said, are you augmenting reporting at all with that in mind with your impressions and engagement? Basically weighting the post depending on the goal.
Yeah, I think so. Again, different posts are going to have a slightly different goal. There are some posts where the focus is impressions because I want people to be aware of this thing. And then there are
Hmm.
some posts that are more driven towards engagement. And I know this can get tricky in social, and like, you see some channels, they're doing what you feel like is engagement for the sake of engagement rates. And so my rule when it comes to stuff like that is it's got to help our community. It's got to help the people that we're talking to. So they have to have a reason to engage, or it's got to help us help them.
Hmm.
So asking them a question, and then we're going to write a blog post about it and share it out later. We're going to use this information to stand up this whole campaign. There's a lot of like sneaky little things we can do. But yeah, I basically when thinking about posts and campaigns, it's a campaign first mentality. What are the big pillar campaigns we need? Is this more of an
Hmm.
impression campaign? Is this more of an engagement campaign? Which of our audience, which persona might care about this the most? Okay, which channels should this go through? Then we get into distribution. And then when we fill in the evergreen content, it's the same approach.
Hmm.
Okay, where does it make sense to add some evergreen content? Hey, judging by how much impression or engagement content we have going on, what do we maybe need more of? And again, it ties back to business goals. Like if
Hmm.
our quarter goal is, we need to increase mentions, or we need to, whatever those goals are, we need to increase awareness so it's top of funnel, or we need to move folks down the funnel. I'll
Hmm.
just adapt to that. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's adapting in the middle of the quarter. There's no science to it. Reporting for social, it kind of sucks because also the analytics are honestly not that great.
I
They're
know.
not they're not great. And so
No.
half of it is it's data informed. So you still
Hmm.
have your gut, you still have the qualitative data, and then you take the quantitative and you inform it, but it's not data driven. You
Right.
cannot make every decision from a number.
That's right. That's right. They definitely help. And any executive's going to want to say, well, show me those numbers, but there's also that, like you said, the philosophy behind it and trying to match that up.
Executives care about the story behind the numbers. As
Yes.
much as they care about the numbers, they actually don't know what to do with them either. And because they're not going to sit there and think about impressions or engagement.
That's right.
You have to sit there and think about, okay, what do I want them to take away from this, instead of letting them take their own situation away from it, which sometimes they will.
That's right. Well, I know, and thank you so much for answering these questions. I know we had, and thank you too to the audience for bringing up these questions. I
Yeah.
think these are all questions that social media pros can definitely take and incorporate into our own way and how we're managing social for brands or clients. But also anyone who's not working in social can be like, okay, I'm trying to get a grasp a little bit about what this is like working in social media marketing. But Arielle, thank you so much for bringing your insights today. Really interesting stuff. I mean, I know if I think of like, ooh, finance company, maybe that doesn't sound that exciting, but you really are. You're like, it sounds like you've just been in a whirlwind with how quickly you're helping this company grow and building your team. So I just really appreciate you taking the time out today to share your expertise with us. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me. And anyone listening, or even you, feel free to reach out anytime. I love talking about this stuff.
That's right. And so, yeah, if anyone has any lingering questions, comment below in the post. But also, please reach out to Arielle on Twitter. Her handle's right there on the screen. And also, go follow M1 Finance on their social accounts too. Arielle, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye. I like it. I like it when we start, when you all bring in these questions, start going. That's exactly what we want to go for, right? Because I still have questions about social media. Yes, I do. Pretty much every day, which is kind of why I love it. Why I got into it in the first place is because it is always changing. It's always evolving, and there's always something new to learn or to showcase or to get a return on and things like that, and different ways to communicate. It's awesome. So many thanks to Arielle for being on the show today for our Social Glue shout out of the week. Real quick before we move into we move into the final segment of today, which is our haiku. Now, those of you who look forward to that, I do too. I love our poetry because it's easy poetry. But before we do that, I just want to remind you that if you're wondering, how did all this stuff I just saw happen on this screen in my hand or on my desk? It was through Restream. So I am using a tool called Restream. I'm able to do a ton of stuff. Everything you've seen on the screen today, I've been able to, I do through Restream. I can also record videos without even going live. So I can do this whole branded thing without even really trying. Works a little better than a Zoom, I'm not going to lie. But you can even use Zoom through RMTP coding to get through Restream and then live broadcasts. So really cool tool. Try it out for yourself. My code is right there on the screen. It's a short link, bit.ly/Rachel uses Restream. Try it out for free for a month and see how you like it. And I would love to hear what you're doing with Restream. So lastly, before we go off the air today, I want to share our haiku of the week. And I wrote this one myself. So let me go ahead and pop it on the screen here. I am making a small announcement today. Now, it's not a good announcement, but it's because there's stuff happening. So I am going to do a quick live stream right after this show to go more in depth. But we are going to go on hiatus a little bit with this show, and there's a few reasons why. One is while we're still going to be using Restream, we're moving on from our partnership with them, but also I have a lot of other projects I'm doing. So again, if you want to stick on the feed right after the show, I'll do a really quick live stream about what's going on and drive to those places. But for right now, Social Glue is going to go on hiatus, but my hope is we'll be back. And by the way, if you want to see today's show or any of our past guests, all of which brought major expertise your way for free via video, check out Social Glue on my YouTube channel or right here in my feed. The posts are all here. But very, very helpful, very good stuff, particularly whether you work in social or not, or you're a business leader and wants to know more about, well, how can I make social work for my brand? Definitely get those insights. But as I say adieu for this final, for now, episode of Social Glue, I just wanted to say, here's my haiku. This isn't goodbye. You know where to find me. Oh, and excuse me. Let's do it correctly. This isn't goodbye. And you know where to find me. Just open your feed and I will be there. So thank you all for watching Social Glue powered by Restream. We've been doing this every Wednesday since December, I think, 2 p.m. Eastern, and hanging out with you with experts and news and haikus. And it's been a joy. And again, that's been every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Let's see what happens next. So stick around on this feed. I'm going to go live in just a moment and talk to you about what's happening next. But thank you all to everyone who has been a guest or participant or a viewer for Social Glue powered by Restream. And we will see what's coming after this. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I did forget to tell you all, it's my 15th wedding anniversary today. So I'm really excited about that. You know, on to the next 15 years, whatever we're doing, and whether it's live stream or just living life. I hope you have a great time living yours. Have a great rest of your day.